of the British Foreign Office at a time when both countries were engaged in conflict in Korea. His name was Donald Maclean. And in April 1951, he became the prime suspect for Homer. Well, just as MI5 was about to interview Donald Maclean, he skipped the country. And it became evident that he had been given a warning, and the warning ultimately was traced to the Secret Intelligence Service representative, station commander in Washington, D.C., who at that time, in April 1951, was Kim Philby. So the information that was gleaned from Venona over all of these years was of enormous significance. This was the information that sent Ethel and Julius Rosenberg to the electric chair. This was what identified David Greenglass, Harry Gold, all the other atomic spies in the United States as Soviet spies. This was espionage on a breathtaking scale, and identified from 1964 onwards Soviet spies in the United Kingdom and Sweden. Fortunately, the Swedish, who are extremely good cryptographers, had also intercepted Soviet wireless traffic and other cable traffic during the Second World War, and they had a very large collection of material for the Anglo-American project to work on. And so in 1964, there was an extra fillip to an extra incentive to continue exploiting this information. And the scary part was that one of the spies, a spy codenamed Baron, was identified as working in Bletchley Park during the Second World War. In 1941, he was hemorrhaging Enigma decrypts, the original intercepts, to the Soviets. This is long before the Soviets joined the Allies, and at that time were supporting Adolf Hitler. So the implications were very considerable, because even to this day, we still don't know the identity of Baron. And some of the spies were caught in very strange ways. Let me just give you one brief example of the way counterintelligence can pick up on the clues in a Venona text. One of the Venona texts in September 1940, sent from London on a GRU channel from the Residentura, who was headed by a man called Ivan Sklerov, indicated that there had been a Soviet spy who had recently been shown around an anti-aircraft battery in Beaconsfield, which is sort of northwest of London. And this information included a very detailed account of the visit. It indicated that the person responsible for supplying Ivan Sklerov with this information was a spy codenamed Nobility. No other clue to his identity. MI5 went and looked at the war diary of the Royal Artillery anti-aircraft battery located at Beaconsfield, and saw that on the particular day that Sklerov had sent his text, a visit had been made to the site by a group of journalists sponsored by the Ministry of Information. Now, what made this so remarkable is that MI5 was looking for a spy codenamed Nobility. And at that time, one of the weaknesses in the Soviet system was that NKVD case officers were allowed to apply or choose their own code names for their sources. So sometimes there was a clue in the identity, in the code name of a particular source. And in looking at the Venona traffic, the GRU traffic from London, it became clear that there was a spy ring called the X Group. And the X Group included Baron, the spy at Bletchley Park. It included a man called Intelligentsia, who appeared to be very well connected. And it also included this spy called Nobility. When the counterintelligence officers looked at the Royal Artillery war diary, they got the names of the journalists who had been allowed to visit. We're okay. Was allowed to visit the the anti-aircraft battery, and one name jumped off the page because he was the Honourable Ivor Montagu. His father was Lord Swathling, that makes him the Honourable. And of course, if you're a Soviet case officer and you're looking for a code name for somebody who has already got a title, nobility is perfect. MI5 investigated Ivor Montagu. Some of you may have heard of his brother, Ewan Montagu, who wrote The Man Who Never Was. But Ivor Montagu was a very impressive individual, albeit a lifelong communist. And his best friend, also a communist, was Professor J.B.S. Haldane, one of the most intelligent and impressive scientists of the 20th century. He was intelligentsia. So there still remain a very large number of spies whose identities we don't know. And in 1995, the American authorities decided to declassify the Venona texts. And virtually all the names are out there except for one. There is one name, one suspected spy in the Venona material. And I will close just by giving you a tantalizing clue to his identity. The reason why his name and his true identity remain redacted to this day is that this individual, who was an American intelligence officer working for OSS during the Second World War, subsequently received a cabinet position in the United States in the 1960s. Better than that, he became the American ambassador to the United Nations. And better than that, he served on the Supreme Court as a Supreme Court Justice. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much indeed for allowing me to address you. I'll be very happy to take questions, if there are any.